Your mother passed away? So? Haven't I told you last week that I got a big gathering with relatives here today? I was shocked by what my mother-in-law said. Well, I'm in the middle of her funeral right now. None of my business. Get here ASAP. I'm having once-a-year party, and I'm short-handed here. I was too hurt that I almost burst into tears. My mother passed away at a young age of 53. My mother-in-law was trying to pull me away from saying my last goodbyes. Her reason was just for the once-a-year party. But her voice on the phone sounded serious, like she hadn't said anything wrong. If I didn't comply with her, I shuddered to think what kind of harassment awaited me in the future. Suddenly, I'm on my way. I replied in a trembling voice and let my tears flow freely. My name is Wendy, 27 years old. My husband Paul and I just got married this year. He is a ceramic designer at a tableware brand. It was just a coincidence that he and I, who was an admin assistant, crossed the path. Paul happened to be free and brought a document that normally passed through the finance department to the admin office. That's how we met the first time. He is from a family of artists. His father, Tom, is a painter, and his sister and brother also work in an art-related field. I wondered if I would fit in well with such a family without having much of an artistic sense, but they welcomed me warmly. Well, not all of them to be exact. There is one person who is displeased with me for suddenly appearing and settling with her son. The person with resentment is Debbie, my mother-in-law. She's been especially fond of Paul, who is the most talented among her children. When he was still at university, she tried to control his future by interfering with his job search and even his dating life. She even tried to set up a marriage while he was still a student, which is hardcore. He thought she was a nuisance, so he rejected all her suggestions, get a job on his own, and decide to marry me. It's kind of a defiance against his mother. Given that, it's not difficult to imagine that she loathes me. Every time she and I meet, you came too, wearing another out of fashion. I'm ashamed to see my daughter-in-law walking around in public, looking like that. Oh God, Wendy! What makes you think you can just sit there and do nothing? She would make a sarcastic remark after another as much. If I try to help as I told, she complains about my every move and makes me feel so small. Fortunately, Paul and the rest of the family don't just watch it happen. My mom's treatment of you, it's so terrible. I'm going to the upcoming memorial services by myself. Whatever she says, I'll just make up something. I'm very sorry about my wife. She still carries the resentment about not being able to control Paul. I'll scold her too. But if she doesn't change, don't worry about coming here. Paul and my father-in-law Tom both look out for me and make arrangements so that she and I would have a little contact as possible. Minimal visits to in-laws. When I'm there, Paul never leaves my side to protect me from Debbie's sarcasm. From her point of view, that adds more oil to the fire. But since she's been warned by Tom and Paul, she couldn't say much to me. Seriously, you were so good at fooling Paul and Tom. So far, I've been able to escape her sarcastic attack with only a little remark.
How's it going, honey?
All good here. How about you? Not overworked?
Yeah, I'm quite busy, but what to do? I miss you and your home cooking.
If you work hard, you'll be rewarded with whatever you want to eat upon your return. It's already at night there? Have a good rest and be ready for tomorrow.
Thanks. I'll go sleep now.
I sighed as I hung up the international call. Paul's business trip abroad was suddenly decided last week. He was told that the designer had to supervise the work at a manufacturing plant overseas. It wasn't unusual for him, but it was the first time decided so suddenly that preparations were hectic. He normally rented a portable Wi-Fi or similar if he was going to be on a long business trip. But this time, he was too rushed to get it done at the last minute. Until it was ready over there, the only time to contact him was when he had Wi-Fi in the hotel room. I was supposed to be alone for a while, so I planned to stretch my wings and visit my parents for the first time in a long time. Then my phone I just put away rang. Wondering if it was Paul again, I saw a strange number on the screen. Even though I was reluctant, I answered the call.
My mother?
It was from the hospital where my mother was taken to after the car accident. I can't remember exactly what happened after the call. When I arrived at the hospital in a rush, my mother was lying in the bed with so many tubes hooked on the machines. The doctors tried everything they could, but she passed away on the night of the accident. She had my brother and me at a young age, and after my father passed away, she raised us alone. She was only 53 years old. My older brother, who got there late, fell down on the floor in tears after seeing her corpse. The driver of the other vehicle got down on the floor and apologized frantically. No matter how much he did, she wasn't going to come back. I couldn't give him my forgiveness then, and just watched him in silence. After all the paperwork was done, my brother decided to be the chief mourner. She had never been a fan of big events in her life, so we thought she wouldn't have liked a grand funeral. We only called close relatives and friends and arranged a humble farewell. Of course, I called Paul right away.
Oh no! What to do? I'd arrange my return.
Don't worry. My brother is taking care of things. If you come back now, it'll create a big dent in your work. My mom respected your work, so she won't be happy if you did that.
Well, okay.
She was so kind to me. I wish I could have been there to say my farewell.
Anyway, I'll try to get my work done ASAP and come home sooner.
Okay, hon. Don't push yourself too hard. He and my mother had a good relationship. I could hear him fighting back tears on the other end of the phone, and I almost cried along. The wake and the ceremony went smoothly, and the burial was to be done next. My brother and I were both slumped with so many things to take care of. We didn't even have time to just mourn. My mother's coffin was placed in a hearse, and we were waiting for the procession to begin. Then I realized that my phone in my bag had numerous missed calls. I thought those were from my mother's friends, as I've already received many. Although I was fortunate to know there were so many people who cared about her. It was difficult to answer to all once the ceremony started. I decided to take the call, which just came in, and turn off my phone afterward. I ran to the side of the church and answered my phone. Yes,
This is Wendy.
Hi, Wendy. What are you up to?
The deafening high-pitched voice hurt my brain. I pulled my phone away from my ear and checked the screen. There it was. The name of my mother-in-law. I had Paul inform his family about my mother. Tom had a family engagement, so he didn't come to the ceremony. Instead, he attended the wake the day before. Then I remembered he came along without Debbie. I wasn't surprised, as I expected her not to show up to the funeral of the mother of her resentful daughter-in-law. What am I up to? I'm in the middle of my mother's funeral.
Oh, right. I think Tom mentioned something about it. By the way, I'm short-handed over here. Come and help me ASAP.
Come over now?
I've told you there is a big gathering of my family today before. Did you think you didn't need to join because Paul was away?
Wishful thinking. I tried hard to explain the situation, but she was determined to have me there. In the end, she asserted,
So, what if your mother's dead? You got more important things to do here. Don't you play a heroine of the tragedy.
She stabbed my heart with such force. It was the very last moment of funeral with my mother. But if I didn't comply with her, I shuddered to think what kind of harassment awaited me in the future. I told my brother that I had some errands to run and drove off in a car. Fortunately, the in-laws' house wasn't so far from the church. I didn't even try to wipe my tears off and just maneuvered the handle. When I entered the in-laws' house, all the relatives were startled. No wonder, as I was in a plain black dress suit in a group of the cheerfully dressed crowd, and anyone could tell that I had been crying. Debbie rushed over to me, not caring everyone was watching, and she spoke in a loud voice.
Finally, you're here. It's been hectic without enough help. At such an important time like this, making excuses about your family and stuff. I wonder if you have any sense of being a daughter-in-law of this family.
In a situation like mine, who cared about your party?
Wendy?
With no energy to argue, I was about to be dragged into the kitchen by Debbie. But I stopped when I was called from behind. I turned around to see one of the relatives with whom Paul had some business interactions, looking at me with a surprised look on his face. He seemed to find it hard to believe that I was there.
Why are you here?
Before I could answer him, Debbie quickly intervened.
I called her up in a hurry because there weren't enough people in the kitchen. Wendy tried to bail out with the excuse of some family stuff, even though everyone has gathered here.
How dare she make up a lie in front of me?
But your mother is Heather Williams, right?
Yes, right.
My company informed me that she passed away, and there is a funeral today. I was told that the outsiders weren't allowed to attend, but prepare a condolence message. I am truly sorry for your loss. This happened so suddenly.
Thank you. Debbie looked puzzled at the exchange between me and the relative. She seemed to be totally at loss. The relative gave me a pat on my shoulder, scowled at her.
Debbie, dragging out a person who just lost her mother like this is indeed heartless. He sternly scolded her, suddenly yelled at. She didn't seem to have a grip on reality and looked around pleadingly with blinking eyes. But all the relatives around us seemed to have known about my mother's obituary and gave her a cold stares.
Wait, why? Why do you all know about her mother's passing? Of course, the death of the famous potter is the top news in the industry. My mother had made a name for herself as a potter for several years. It was originally one of the hobbies she took up when my brother and I became independent, but she quickly developed the talent for it. She became an up-and-coming craft artist whose name was known in the industry. Paul, who works for a tableware brand, and Tom, who was a painter, knew about and interacted with her. But Debbie was the only one who wasn't aware of it. In any way, it was easy to find out my mother was a potter with a click of a search. And I wasn't intentionally hiding the fact. It was just that she had no interest in me and never tried to get to know me. Most of the relatives from Tom's artsy family side were also involved in the art scene. There was even a few of them who offered to attend the funeral, but I had to turn them down for the reason being a closed ceremony. You didn't know that Wendy was the daughter of Heather, did you? In any case, you were an awful mother-in-law. She's clearly grieving. Yet you forced her to come to this meaningless gathering. The buzzing relatives were all judgmental towards Debbie. No, I didn't mean. Debbie looked flustered. Tried to say something in her defense, but her words were all jumbled and incomprehensible. Hearing the commotion, Tom rushed towards us through the crowd. He looked startled at the sight of me, and then immediately glared at Debbie. Debbie, what have you done? No, Tom, I didn't. Wendy. Tom turned to me, ignoring Debbie's mumble, and said, You better go back to the funeral now. I am so sorry, Wendy. She troubled you at a difficult time. He gave me a warm hug and prompted me to leave. I hastily walked out of the house toward my car. No, this is not what you think. Please, listen. I heard Debbie's desperate scream coming out of the house, but I could care less at that point. I drove as fast as I could to the ceremony and was able to see my mother's coffin lowered into the ground. My brother was a little upset that I had left him alone to deal with everything, but I told him what really happened. What a pain in the butt! He was sympathetic and even seemed to be holding back his anger. A few days after the burial, Paul was able to finish his work and returned. We went to the gravesite to pray together. He deeply mourned my mother's passing, saying that he had respected her craftsmanship even before we met. Since the incident, Tom demanded a divorce from Debbie. He had been troubled by her, who tended to be vain and out of control, just because she was a wife of a famous artist. When he was shown the insane behavior of pulling me out of a funeral to help at her party, he became completely disgusted with her. Debbie, who quit her job after marrying Tom and had been living a comfortable life as a housewife, is baffled and is resisting the divorce. Paul says if it went to trial, she would have no chance. Debbie had spent a large sum of Tom's saving in vain, and he has kept all the bank settlements as proof. I wonder if she would be able to make ends meet on her own after living a comfortable life as a housewife. but I remind myself that there is no need for me to worry about her. Our plan, my sister and brother are planning to move, so my mom won't come and bother them.
Wow, seriously?
She's been a pain in the neck to everyone in her family. By the way, hon, if you don't mind, shall we move too? During the business trip, I was asked to work there.
You mean in Paris?
Yeah. I know it might be a lot of trouble for you, but
I'm astounded by the sudden, such a big suggestion. Relocating in Paris. It doesn't sound real to me. I have my mother's grave to take care of, and of course my work. So it's hard to decide right now, but sure, if you want to give it a try, I'll go along with you. I want to trust the person next to me. If my mother was here, she would push my back and say, "You go and take care of him," at his side. New life in a new environment. With this thought, I feel my gaze naturally look straight ahead. My mother's death was painful, and the series of events that followed was like a storm. By overcoming them, I will walk forward with Paul at my side.